Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Information Week Fast Chat titled Unlocking the Future of Network as a Service and AI with Blackbox and Juniper joining forces. Listen, this is going to be a really, really fun, upbeat conversation about kind of sort of really important topics, an acronym which you may or may not have heard of, AI. And of course, the power of the network through which all of AI kind of sort of flows. It's the lifeblood of our ecosystems. Welcome, everybody. I'm Bill Clayman, lead technologist over at Neuro and the contributing editor here at Information Week. And joining me is Mike Emmert, who is a sales management executive with Blackbox. And he brings a really diverse skill set into technology and industry and really working with his customers and businesses to propel them to new heights with really cool strategic expertise and a solution-oriented approach. Really kind of sort of a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today. Mike, it's great to have you, man.
Oh, thanks. Glad to be here.
All right, well, we have just a few minutes here, and we got to keep the attention span of everybody watching this. So get off your Amazon shopping list and come learn about network as a service and AI with us. I'm just going to jump into this conversation really quick. I love the name of your company, and it is not the thing that you take out of an airplane. And some folks might not know who Blackbox is. So really quick, Mike, at a very high level, tell us who is Blackbox and what do you do as an IT solutions provider in this wonderful technology world?
Yeah, fair enough. So Blackbox is at its core an information services company, an IT services company. We've been in existence nearly half a century. As you could imagine, over that time, information services or IT services have changed dramatically. Back in 1975, networks did not look like they do today, right? There's actually no resemblance. So I would say that at its core, back in the day in 1975, Blackbox was really what I would call a smart hands business. So smart hands being things like structured cabling. There was data centers in 1975, so we did a lot of data center work at that time. Things have changed dramatically, right, over the course of time, and so has Blackbox. We have, fast forward to today, we have teams of subject matter experts that span a whole host of technologies, and we are now a global system integrator. Blackbox is a company that operates for our customers, and we have customers in 137 countries across 6 continents. That includes NOCs and SOCs globally. That includes covering technologies way more than just structured cabling and data center business. It's data center as a service. It's network as a service. We do unified communications. We do video services. We do private 5G, distributed antenna systems, enterprise networking. The list goes on and on. So effectively, anything that you could imagine from an IT technology perspective, that's what Blackbox does.
Half a century of experience. Holy cow. I'm a millennial. I remember seeing my first ever like 10100 network switch, thinking it was the bee's knees. It was the coolest thing ever. Which brings us to a very good sort of little mini segue here. There's this little company, this little networking security company. Oh my gosh, it starts with a J, Juniper. And hopefully everyone's smiling because they're not very small. And they're actually a bit of a topic of conversation here, Mike. So, really high level for those folks that might not be familiar or, need an update. Who's Juniper?
Yeah, so Juniper is interesting. They've had a similar transition over time, right? If I have been in the networking business since the early 80s, so that's a long time, obviously. And you've seen, I would say Juniper was originally considered as a network equipment manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
They built routers, they still do that today. Routers, switches, security appliances, right? A whole host of networking technologies. Where Juniper is today, though, is entirely different than where they used to be. Back in the day, they managed networks, or they and their partners managed networks. Now Juniper has transitioned into managing the customer experience. And the way they're able to manage the customer experience is they have AI technology. They have true AI technology. And they have that because of the acquisition of Mist. And that's a Wi-Fi technology. I think the acquisition was 4 to 5 years ago now. But Mist has an engine called Marvis. And yes, that's named after Jarvis, right? From a movie some people have seen. That AI engine actually now today allows Juniper to manage resources in the full stack. So that's from the edge gateway all the way to the core. So I can get into a lot more detail on Juniper, but I think that gives you the general picture. They now manage the customer experience, and that's what we're all about.
I love what you said, and I really hope everyone listening to this takes that little bit of a gold nugget away. We're moving, obviously the network's important. Obviously monitoring and managing the bits and bytes are important, but it's ultimately how is it being consumed? So this shift into a mobilely connected digital world, and what is your experience like, and how can I modify my ecosystem? Now, listen, off script, by the way, I love the name because, I don't know, I'm a little bit of a Marvel fan. I've got my little Iron Man button here. And, just sometimes when the conversation gets a little crazy, I can bring out my shield. Oh, no. I'd have my Iron Man helmet on here as well. So we could really have some Marvis conversations. I'm really curious, Mike, to sort of extend this out, not to get into a segue because we could talk about Marvel for the next 10 minutes. That would be a different fast chat. I'm really curious to hear, with this transformation that you're talking about, right? We learned a little about Black Box, we learned about Juniper. Now you're doing some really cool things, Black Box and Juniper together, that are revolutionizing that customer experience, that user experience with, obviously data and so on. So tell me a little bit more about what you're doing with Juniper today.
So I think the proof in the pudding, right? Juniper's got numerous partners. Black Box happens to be one, right? But we are one of 9 global system integrators in the world. So obviously that's important to Juniper. I think more importantly, I think the proof in the pudding is the fact that in 2022, Juniper actually named Black Box their #1 partner. Now, why did they do that? I mean, there are a whole host of reasons. And I actually used to be at Juniper for 4.5 years. So I know Juniper very well, but I know what's important to Juniper, and that is a partner, and that would be Black Box, who is really invested in their customers and their customer experience, right? So Black Box knows how to support its customers from cradle to grave might be a bad word, but when you start talking about those things, right, and you talk about network and network transformation, it doesn't just include installing routers and switches. That can be the entire ecosystem in a network transformation, and that is structured cabling, right, from the beginning. And that's whether it's structured cabling for a data center or access points or whatever it might be, all the way through design of the network transformation to deployment of that network transformation and the solutions that are included in it, to the day 2 support, right? I think that is the power of the Black Box Juniper connection, is that we provide those services from start to finish. I won't use cradle to grave anymore in that regard.
Start to finish, Mike. I like that.
Yeah.
I really wanted to ask these questions, and for everybody listening, I'm not gonna lie, some of this stuff is unscripted and off the cuff, which is part of the fun of a fast chat, to be perfectly honest. I really like this conversation because I think the user experience, especially with what Black Box is doing to empower it, is absolutely critical. So you touched on this just a little bit. This is a 2-part question. And the second part I feel maybe is a little bit more important, but maybe you can discuss a little bit more about how your partnership stands out from the others. Obviously, you mentioned how you're the #1 partner from last year with Juniper. But the second part of this question is actually something you mentioned that I'm really curious about. And I think a lot of listeners would be curious about as well. You're a customer. What can you expect when they combine Black Box with this new technology you just talked about, Juniper Mist AI? And what I'm really curious about what headache does it help solve, Mike? Like what does it help them overcome when you bring this partnership together, combine Black Box and Juniper Mist AI, and feel free to like throw in some of the like the features and functions of that technology too, because it's newer for a lot of folks.
Sure, understood. Well, I think there are multiple components to that answer. There are, honestly, I don't know if there's another global system integrator that can do the start to finish services. So a customer would have to try to find or subcontract somebody to do their structured cabling. In some cases, their rack and stack. In some cases, their configuration and deployment. Obviously, some global system integrators are different than others. That differentiates us entirely, number one, because you do not, it's one back to pat, one throat to choke, if you want to be negative, but hopefully it doesn't go there. I think the second big thing about that is that we have practice leaders in effectively every technology discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So we've practice leaders for data center. We've practice leaders for enterprise networking. We have practice leaders for cloud. Why would you care? You would care a lot because that brings subject matter expertise to the conversation. Again, and where that really comes into play is time to resolution, right? Total cost of ownership for our customers. And that's whether Black Box provides this as a service, because we can provide data center as a service. We can provide network as a service. You name it, we can provide it as a service. But if the customer chooses to manage their own environment, right, we will still help them with that experience because we have the subject matter expertise and the practice leaders to enable that.
That is way cool. Let me try and summarize this. So what you're effectively doing is using your expertise as well as Juniper Mist AI and their combination of AI, machine learning, and data sciences techniques really to optimize and focus on that user experience to simplify, let's be honest, sometimes very complex operations across like wireless WAN, wired access, and even like SD-WAN. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. I mean, I probably skipped over a little bit about the power of Marvis, right? Because when you talk about the power of Marvis combined with Black Box, you have tangible business outcomes that make your business less costly and improves your customer experience. I mean, there is plenty of data from Juniper to support the fact that implementing Mist Wi-Fi solutions will reduce Wi-Fi trouble tickets by 80 to 90%. Yeah, that's true. 80 to 90% is a real number. Your total cost of ownership goes down also because of the way Juniper implemented Mist or designed Mist. There's effectively only one hardware component on the customer premise where Wi-Fi is concerned. It's not like some of the competition, Juniper's competition, where they need a wireless LAN controller. They need AI appliances. I'll loosely say AI because some of the other vendors technically don't have AI when you compare that to Juniper. So there are a whole host of reasons, but the bottom line is the total cost of ownership to our customer is reduced. Time to resolution on trouble tickets is reduced, and the number of trouble tickets is reduced. And I mean, you will see that. I mean, Juniper has customers like some of the really big Fortune 4 or 5 companies in the world, and they wouldn't be making that move if it wasn't justified.
So Mike, I appreciate that knowledge bomb. That was awesome. Like that was really, really cool to learn how much, of the tickets you can reduce just by making a more intelligent wireless architecture. All right. Last question. Let's call this a rapid fire one. And as I'm asking this, you can think about it. We're going to look at the crystal ball for just a second here to look ahead a little bit. I love to give our listeners a little bit of a gold nugget. Let's give them a gold nugget to think about. Network as a service, AI, Marvis now. These are new nascent kind of topics and ideas and things that we need to think about. So what can you leave everyone here as a final thought? How do you get started? Where should you be wrapping your head around this? What is Mike Emmert's final thoughts here?
my final thoughts, and this is how I have dealt with pretty much every, I'll call them equipment OEM, network OEM in the business. And I think this is a combined story between Blackbox and Juniper, but I'll focus on Juniper for now. They have effectively built their solutions from the ground up. They have built it on a microservices architecture that allows them to be agile, to have hit lists, I'll call it no downtime firmware upgrades, right? And the automation engine that is in Marvis is the game changer. It allows them to see the full stack. And, in historical purposes, anybody who was a managed services provider could see the edge device. They could not effectively manage beyond that. So I hope that answers your question. That's
It does, Mike, and thank you for that. It's looking deeper into some of these technologies, making sure that you've got the right people to support you. Unfortunately, and all I can continue this conversation, especially with all those Marvel references, we're out of time in this fast chat. Everybody listening, if you want to learn more, be sure to visit blackbox.com. And hey, everybody, we have a special little link for you right down below in this chat that's going to talk about more about what Juniper and Blackbox are doing to help you transform IT. With that, Mike, thanks so much for hanging out with us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm Bill Clayman. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us on this Information Week Fast Chat.